This is the Fitness Wisdom Podcast.
So what it was this systemic inflammation in my joints and like tendons near the joints. And like I didn't have good muscle force, like nerve force. Like if I were trying to open a jar of pickles, like I couldn't even take the ice tray and do that to pop the ice cubes out of the tray. Because it would take me like 3 minutes to get like in the bathtub, because it was just like, I'm the Tin Man and everything hurt. But being in that state for a while, and it would sort of do this. Like I'd feel like it's getting better, and then it would get worse, and then better and worse. And I think basically it just sort of this overwhelming detox process. But the whole process of having that much time being that weak, I basically just worked on perfect. And I hit the bone balance, and I made some certain discoveries of my intent that I'm coming out of this thing. If I hadn't had this, bad, I might not have found
Or break.
good, right? And I view I am expendable, okay? I am a pioneer. I don't care ultimately. For me, the most important thing is that billions of people from here to eternity make every step stronger because I brought it to them. And that's what I'm fighting for. So what this is sharing the information that allows someone to find that connection between gravity, the ground, heaven, earth, mind, body, soul. You're not fighting against yourself, because you're not fighting against gravity. You fight with gravity. You catch gravity. You go with gravity. You send gravity to the ground, and then boom, you receive and express. And we don't want anything. We don't want anything to get stuck inside the body. We don't want restriction, right? What is a decelerator muscle in the shoulder? It's the spiral that decelerates. There's not a muscle in there stopping the movement of the arm. I mean, and these are basic understandings of fundamentals that have been misunderstood and confused by the peer review exercise that does not know what we're talking about, because they do not have the essential aspect or factor, which is a personal movement practice. If you're teaching movement, you ain't practicing movement, well, then you're not teaching movement, right? You're teaching.
That's true.
You're teaching what you think, what you've been told, and you have zero verification for yourself. You're no longer autonomous. You're a little puppet and a parrot on a string saying stupid things like, do the Pavlov press. The core doesn't generate power. Oh, no. Right? The spine needs to be stiff and neutral to run and to sprint. Otherwise, you'll leak power and get hurt. Like, you could not be more wrong on the most fundamental function that we as human beings do, which is upright bipedal locomotion. And loco means crazy in Latin and Spanish, right? Loco is crazy. And right now, it is absolutely insane that we are not, as a fitness industry, that we are not globally, systemically, with unity, teaching the map for perfect balanced locomotion. And if you're not teaching it, that's okay. You just have to have a reason, okay? So let's say somebody wants to specialize in something that requires them to bulk up to 350 pounds and lift the barbell in 3 lifts. You might be passing the threshold where you're enhancing the movement, but you're chasing a goal that is different. And it's conscious. You're not inadvertently sabotaging yourself and sabotaging the clients who you work with, because you don't understand correct intent. And intent is everything in terms of the things under your control, because it is an intent that determines where the red dot on the sight is aimed. So we have to aim at the center of the bullseye, in the center of the center, in the center of the center of the center, in the center of the center, in the center, in the center, right? And the old lady swallowed the fly, perhaps she'll die, blah, 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 blah. It goes forever. Intent never stops. Range may stop, but intent never, ever stops because intent always has somewhere to go, right? And it can, right? And it knows what
That's beautiful.
it knows what it wants and it knows what it needs. And the individual, right? The avatar and the meat puppet, well, they get to exist with the ultimate creature comfort, which is pain-free tensional balance throughout your body. You wake up, you don't hurt, you get to do things and you're not thinking
Yes.
about your knee, right? That is the ultimate thing that you could ask for the most fundamental form of creature comfort. Whether you live in a castle or a cave, if you're in pain, life sucks. Okay? And it's a distraction, it's a frustration, it's an anger, it's helplessness, it's impotence. You're hurt and it can't get better. You're hurt and you can't fix it. You're hurt and you got no idea why. Well, maybe one of the factors is you took 20 million steps, each one of them just ever so slightly out of balance. You didn't even notice because one step doesn't matter. But 20 million reps at 90%. Okay, you got a 1% bleed, a 1% leak, a 1% in need of restrictive compensatory tension upward in the body to compensate for the 1% imbalance. And so, okay, well, muscles have to activate that wouldn't have to activate. It's not in the proper sequence or proportion. Right? Because you're compensating from the fact that your definition of walking is from a textbook that says walking is a series of controlled falls where you recover your balance every step. If that's what walking is, no wonder so many people have back pain, because that's not what walking is. You do the walking in the air so that when you interact with the ground, it's perfect. And then you arrange the upper body to do it seamlessly and perfectly. And perfect is the standard. Okay. If you are an animal on God's green earth, you locomote with perfect balance. Okay. That's God's rule, because those who couldn't locomote with perfect balance didn't pass on their genetics. So we come from the winners. We come from the ones that when calories were scarce, like you can't find a calorie, they figured out how to find the calories, bring them home, and keep the dream alive. Right? I don't care any other factor if you fail, because if you fail in those terms a long time ago, you're dead. You're good for nothing.
Yes.
You're good for nothing because you couldn't feed your family. You couldn't protect your family. What is a man's job in this world but to provide and protect and procreate? It's the birds and the bees. It's the strongest driving factor known to humanity is the sexual drive. All right. Now that can be and it can be transmuted. It could be squandered. It could be cherished and celebrated. It could be all those things. But that is the drive to stay alive beyond yourself. Your loins yearn for it. The pheromones, all the stuff that you have no idea that's influencing your senses and your feelings and your actions. Right? You got no idea. But it's that drive that helps us fight harder. It helps us win because the motivation is 100%. Today's personal trainer can come in and fundamentally upset your survival reflexes, which is fight, flight, response ability. What you gonna do when you're suddenly confronted with the surprise attack? Right? It could be a surprise opportunity. It could be a surprise threat. What's your first reaction? Right? If your first reaction is up because you did Pavlov, that all you pattern at the fundamental level is uproot, defend the defenseless, be stupid, right? Make my body strong in the wrong way because intent is incorrect. because it doesn't let you win with gravity because it severs the root between gravity and the ground when you are uprooted and restricted. You're no longer the circuit, the conduit makes a connection from gravity to the ground because you're in between. And it's the positions. And I don't want people thinking of shapes because shape is something that you interpret from the outside. A position is the position where you know because you feel and because you can do, poised to pounce. Right now, ready, not getting tired because we're going to eat tonight. We established that on one leg, and then we established that on the other leg. And if you're going to jump the Grand Canyon on a motorcycle, you got to build a ramp, but you also got to build the landing ramp, because if you don't have the landing ramp, well, you ain't going to go for it. And when you have poised to pounce on one side and points to pounce on the other, and you can transition and you can move, that's the way that we play, right? That's orchestrating mathematically precise, melodious movement, right? It's just pure poetry and music and motion. Every molecule of one's mass participating productively with boom, 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 boom. It doesn't go here. It goes here. Okay? This is physics. Boom, boom. This is a personal trainer saying what he's been told without understanding what the hell he's even saying.
Struggling with gut issues? Did you know that your circadian rhythms and the type of light you're exposed to massively influences your gut health and microbiome? The gut heals and repairs itself at night in the absence of blue light and in the presence of melatonin. Another essential reason why you should be blocking and minimizing blue light after sunset. Artificial blue light activates the sympathetic nervous system and keeps us stuck in fight and flight. We cannot heal and regenerate in a sympathetically dominant state. Artificial blue light has been known for contributing to gut dysbiosis. On the other hand, UV, red and near-infrared wavelengths of light have been shown to positively influence health and diversity of the gut microbiome. I will highlight in detail in the description what all the different wavelengths of light are doing to your gut. A healthy gut and microbiome is essential for brain and mental health, energy levels, metabolism, digestion and absorption of foods, skin health, robust immune system response, regulating inflammation, nervous system regulation, weight management, and so much more. This is why I make sure to get my belly and entire body out in the sun every single day, as well as use my favorite red and UV therapy panels from EMRtech.com. Check out the panels that I use on a daily basis to improve my overall health and well-being, and use the promo code MobilityFitness at checkout for a massive 20% discount.
Yeah, so basically what you just said there, it's literally our duty as a human being to walk in balance, because if we didn't walk in balance, we wouldn't survive, and going back to our roots. And now because of our modernity and our modern living and our ability to survive, despite walking and moving dysfunctionally, has allowed all of this dysfunction to perpetuate in the world and to manifest, basically, because there is literally no need. We talked a little bit about this last time, that, there is no need for people to go and hunt and gather their food, or to even protect or provide anymore. Everybody's just doing their thing and thinking about themselves, right? Yep. And well, they're not even thinking about themselves, unfortunately. And that's why everybody is in pain, because no one is having that movement practice like you're talking about, discovering what is the optimal way to move my body, right, so that I'm pain-free. And I love everything that you're sharing, because we started off on a bit more of a spiritual aspect. You were mentioning a little bit about God and, and about heaven and earth. And I always think how the way that you orient your bones or your positions, like you were saying, instead of your shapes, I feel like there is a lot of sacred geometry in the body. And you talked a little bit about how the shoulder, and how that the shoulder actually stops because of the spiral, not actually because of the muscle. So can you go a little bit deeper into that for me? Because I think the audience would find that fascinating.
Yes. Well, first I want to go back to this idea of the threshold. So a long time ago, Locomotion 1.0, our ancestors, the threshold was survival, right? So the motivation to survive forced, it attenuated their actions so that they locomoted with perfect balance so they could catch the animal that locomoted with perfect balance. So everything physically in movement was perfectly balanced just because of the natural order of eat or be eaten. You're either eaten and not eaten, or you're eating and not being eaten, right? It's one or the other. Now go to modern time. You got the technology and all those things that the threshold has changed. So now it's no longer life and death, it's quality of life.
Yeah.
And do you listen
Yeah.
listen to Tony Robbins, right? People will fundamentally seek to avoid pain more than they will pursue pleasure. All right? So the fear of pain, right, is a stifling thing that limits so many people. And that's why it's happening. And now we go from locomotion 1.0, our ancestors, that's what it was. That's why we're here. Then we go through a relatively short time frame of locomotion we don't know, right? We pretend to know, but we don't know. And now we get to locomotion 2.0 that restores the physical integrity of 1.0, but it's conscious and it's cultivated and it's trained with modern technology and innovation, using the most ancient tools under the sun, which is a stick, a stone, and a rope. And we learn how to manipulate these teachers, okay? The tool is the teacher, because that is the kinesthetic, proprioceptive. We're talking about reality right now. The quality of the tool and its motion is 100% directly, instant by instant, related to how perfect you are. And you can make the stick or the rope perfect, which transfers perfect into you. When you put it down, it's a rite of passage. Nobody is saying that you got to smoke a joint and go rope flow at the beach for 10 hours. If that's what you like to do, and some people like to do it, and a lot of people like to do it, that's fantastic. And you're going to get amazing athletic benefit from that use of time. An athlete doesn't have the time and the inclination to do that. So all you got to do as an athlete is just get good at it. And now if you're good at it, you could put the rope down and never touch it again, ever. And you've now been leveled up, quantum leap in performance with a better trajectory for the rest of your life. That's the promise. That's what you get from rope flow. And all you need to do is you just got to get 4 patterns, and then the muscle memory's in you. Every molecule of your mass is integrated and participating together productively. All right. And so when we're talking about foundation, we have to go back to the basic survival actions. And the order of them, would be, it would be breathing is one. Okay. You got to do that. You got to locomote. You got to swing. You got to throw. You got to catch, and you got to carry. Okay. And then you got to drink, and then you got to eat. But you don't have to drink and you don't have to eat, because you can't drink and you can't eat if you can't go get it and bring it home using those 5 functions sandwiched in between breathing, which we have to do now, water and food, which we have some time to do, and the bridge that connects them. So I get to breathe, I get to drink, and I get to eat, as opposed to just breathe, which is going to stop at some point painfully and not a pleasant way to just erode, right, to extinction, right? So if we can now control, right, the movements of our body, now we have the physics and the biomechanical, the structural remodeling of the body's structural tissues is now being modeled with forces that are fluid, unrestricted. And now that's how your DNA gets to lay it down, and is not laying down perfect on this web of imperfect, right? Because that's what you, if you operate out of balance, well, then that imperfection, right, breaks it breaks the circuit. And what gives me so much optimism, okay, I mean, it's certainty at this point, is that you have to walk anyway, and to walk with perfect balance is so simple, and from a coordination standpoint, just as easy as walking poorly. So you literally have a choice if you're aware of the choice, right? But if you're not aware because your personal trainer in the science book said, oh, we got to do this. Oh, we got to do that. Like, that's not true, right? And we don't have we don't have enough people who have escaped the bucket of crabs and that peer pressure to pull other people down, right? The fear and loathing and the envy of the crabs in the bucket forces all the crabs to sort of stick to the same story, because if you don't, well, you're at the bottom of the bucket because you're not current, right? You part of the science, right? And so that is a stifling. Someone could have a good idea, but so fearful of being ostracized by presenting something different that conflicts with, today's scientific, conclusion, right? And that's the problem, is they concluded, right? All the science, we already did the science. Now we move on to, you know what I mean? So
it's crazy.
it's inevitable that changes, and that makes me the thought leader. I'm the center of,
absolutely.
I am the center of gravity. My methodology, I'm going to say it's necessary if you truly want to move your best, because I would say everybody else, you could be near X on the map, or you could be pointing X on.
As you mentioned, that you're providing the option.
What I'm doing is
for people.
I'm providing the knowledge, and the knowledge is the power, and people can get better without a financial transaction. Nobody has to pay me a dime to transform their life to make all things better, which is fine, perfect balance.
It worked for me.
It's working for everybody who does it. And that is the most compelling thing, is it works in reality. Okay, like, oh, you can't fly an airplane? That's impossible. All right, well, watch me. I understand Bernoulli's principle, and I'm going to build a structure that operates according to Bernoulli's understanding that the air, the air going over the wing takes more time, creates a low pressure that gives you lift from the pressure that is higher underneath. Okay, we can fly an airplane, but it was once deemed impossible. They had an argument about whether or not a horse in a gallop, do all four hooves leave the ground and he's suspended in air with nothing touching around, or is there always one hoof on the ground? Now, because trotting, there's one on the ground all the time, right?
Yes.
Now you can't see it when it's happening at the speed of real life without a video that you can slow down. So you literally have people betting, certain that they're going to win the bet, And some guy gets a stop motion camera, goes click, click, click. We see the horse in the air. All right, pay your bet and don't be so fucking certain when you don't even know you're stupid. But
in nature,
ignorance is okay as long as it doesn't cross the threshold of willful ignorance. And that's where it is right now. You got a bunch of fitness and sports training experts who are wrong. They've heard about what I'm teaching and they're terrified, and the silence is deafening. It's the wrong move. If you're in their shoes, what you do is you just come clean. Okay, wow, I didn't understand it, but now I can take all the things that I do understand, and now they're they're powered by Weck Method, their standard, right? And that there's a competitive business drive that fuels my effort, as well as distilling the truth into simpler ways to embody and experience it and express it. I want to make humankind, right? And we are currently in the meantime, right? And the meantime is too long to get to the humankind time, right?
Yes.
And people who are strong,
absolutely,
and because their strength is sustainable. If you don't have balance, you can be strong, but that strength is no longer sustainable, because force transmission is the thing right here and force magnitude is here. And if this number sucks, well, this number starts to not matter. And if it sucks enough down here, well, then this can actually be detrimental because I can overload a bad structure, bad defined as not perfect. And now I could actually get hurt for being wrong strong because my strength was wrong. Oh, okay, that's really good. And that's what happened. Strength and conditioning, okay? These guys have no understanding of the mechanics of locomotion, so they can't aim at a central bullseye that never changes and can be evaluated empirically just like a bench press, right? I know if you're stronger, we both know how much you can bench. There's no lying, there's no faking, right? It is what it is because it's physical, right? So your castle in Dubai, I mean, that's just this, made up little story to pretend how great you are. But if it's 10 push-ups, we know, right? You can't fake it. And that's what's so powerful about it. It's so powerful because the more people powered by Weck Method gives me brand awareness and brand trust. Okay? Every single human being on this planet will hear about and they will see the, sort of the actions that stem from it. They will be powered by method, right? Whether they like it or not, you got to balance. So you really want to cut your nose off to spite your face because you're a pal off press guy. That's the stupidest thing that you could do, right? Is try to deny what I'm teaching is not the fundamental invariant truth, meaning if you don't get the truth right, you can't get anything else right. And it is only the innate athletic intelligence in the athlete being sabotaged that saves them from the sabotage. Because in the gym, they're doing stupid wrong strong, but they're athletic. So on the field, they're doing it perfect, right? Perfect that hasn't, it's perfect that hasn't been polished, right? It's perfect that hasn't been perfected, right? So the natural athlete is perfect like the tiger, Bo Jackson, but if he had correct understanding that allowed him to apply correct intent over time, where now you start to snowball because perfect is now so perfect. And you attenuate it down that a mistake is still within the boundary of perfect. You've trained it so much and so effective. You've trained it so effectively. And again, for me, it was mailbox money that gave me every hour of every day of, forever. Okay. What do you want to do with your time? Well, take your pick, anything you want. Athletic inadequacy because I can't get paid to play, and I want to get paid to play. So what's the next best thing I can do? Because I am college level athletic, right? I could play college football, which puts me above another threshold because there's very few people relative to those who can't play in college, but I can't play in pro. And so that puts me in this unique bandwidth where I'm athletic enough to know if I figured out something real or not. Because I'm an athlete and I know, right? Oh, yeah, if I feel it and I time it and I measure it and it's better, well, that's what it is, right? And then you test it in other people, you confirm that they're getting a similar benefit, and you're off to the races, and you're the head of the pack, and you're leading the way. And if they don't want to fall back and not even finish the race anymore, they just got to be powered by Weck Method. And that awareness and trust gives me the step, right? The entree into footwear. And footwear.
Nice.
I am going to build the greatest shoes that have ever been built for enhancing the biomechanics of perfectly balanced locomotion. Okay, they will be the unequivocal, absolute best. Okay, everybody's going to know the name and everybody's going to trust the name. And I'm going to put shoes on billions of people. All right. Phil Knight, he won the race, but the race is actually longer than the race that he's winning right now because I'm going to pass him and I'm going to. What did Phil Knight fundamentally do to footwear as he had probably the biggest impact on footwear of any human being on the planet ever? That's Nike, all right? That's victory. That's their logo, okay? They get the executive. they get tattoos of the swish on their ankle because they're part of the club. Now let's look at the fundamental foundation of Nike. What got Nike started? Who are they at the center, at their soul, right? The SOLE. What is their soul? It is a fashionable foot coffin with a decline, okay, the decline, and a perfectly flat roll that doesn't understand the optimal sequence as I do. Okay. So essentially what Phil Knight essentially did was he comforted people's dysfunction. So rather than fix the causal factor, he put a band-aid
Yes.
on it, and the band-aid is the
Yeah.
band-aid that as the wound heals, it starts to pull at the band-aid, and you can't rip the band-aid off because he put you in fashionable foot coffins that choked off your toes, put you on a slant, let you
Yes.
down every step, no ramping up, and they just let you down. Weck gives you lift, the others let you down. And that's true. Great marketing little phrase, but it's even better because it's true. So you can say it in different ways because it always routes back to the truth. So my footwear, and you're talking about divine proportion and sacred geometry. I have gone so deep into those subjects and assimilated and equated the understanding of how they are manifest of the human body. DNA, that spiral dictates the assemblage and construction, right, of the structure.
So let me ask you real quick before you continue.
Yeah.
So basically, on this topic right now, do you believe that if we move out of balance or in dysfunction because we are out of balance, our sacred geometry is not orchestrated the way it should be, allowing us to tune into the divine, and therefore we're not receiving the downloads or the information that we should be from God, universe, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I mean, I was think of like an analogy of playing the guitar, and like the frets don't interact with the strings quite right. So you can't play that guitar as well as you can play the guitar that's in tune and the frets are perfect. You know what I mean? So like if you bought a cheap electric guitar off Amazon, you probably can't even play Eddie Van Halen Eruption because you're playing up on the frets here. And so if the frets don't work well enough, you can't hit them and play Eruption any good if the guitar essentially doesn't let you. And I brought him to the guitar store, got him this limited edition Gibson, and he learned Eruption in the store. He's like 9 years old, 9 years old. We're buying that guitar. And that's the guitar. And the owner of the store is like, your son is gifted. Now imagine if I couldn't give him the instrument, that we could express that gift and we could develop that gift. And every athlete training in the gym with this, we got to keep stiff through the core. You're giving them, you're putting them on a path to untuning the guitar so that guitar structurally, because I've done it for so many years, neurologically and structurally, I've put myself behind the 8 ball, right? You got to get with the 8 ball. You can't stand behind the 8 ball. Right? Because you don't advance the ball. You know what I mean? You're glitchy, right? And so, and this is a very real consequence of ignorance that commandeered science. Because if you get to say what the science is, then you have the final authority on what is correct and not correct, because you've studied it scientifically. And everybody else is just an anecdote. Oh, yeah, it happened to you, but it might not happen for others. But we did a study with 19 soccer players, so therefore we can definitively conclude that BOSU balls suck and that we need to do whatever, right? We need to do more power presses. It's agenda science, right? They know the result that is marketable and they want to get out ahead of it, so they get the science first of something fundamentally stupid and incorrect, but hey, it got me to the next level, and now I get to lord over everybody, and they have to do what I say. Otherwise, they get excommunicated from the social and financial. You can't get a job in strength and conditioning unless you tell them that this is what you believe, because that's the right answer on the test, which is the wrong answer in reality. And they won't fess up to it. A bunch
Yeah,
of
it's crazy.
chickens, right? Oh, I'm all big and bold and tough when I'm standing on stage with the authority of science, misguiding and, sabotaging every trainer in the room. And then the ripple goes out to all the trainers that couldn't make it to the conference. Okay. The ones who make it to the conference are the ones that are succeeding, But if you're early in the game, right? Well, you got no choice, but you got to go that way. Right? Because if you go any other way, well, you're not doing the science. You don't have the certification. It gives you even the capacity to apply for a job in high school, college, or the pros, right? So it's a structural core up shin, right? Your shin bone, you think of your skeleton as a core. It's another way to look at the core and it's the core that actually interacts with the floor. Right? The torso doesn't direct, you have a core that's the core of the
Yes.
body, but you also have a core
Yeah.
inside the body that is the skeleton, right? So,
Wow.
and so skeletal force transmission is the easy force transmission because the bones are already strong and you don't need some kind of I'm not going to conjure bone movement and strength. The bone movement and strength is 100% from outward influence, whether that influence is from the ground or from an external factor, right? So rooting through the skeletal structure has to be our foundation, right? It has to be, because if the skeleton is no longer a core that has integrity, it's a core that has like this upward restriction, well, then the core that fundamentally interacts with the floor is now compromised. So the core, as we define it as the fluid, has tension rising up, not everything dropping down. Drop down into balance and go, drop, go, ba-boom, ba-boom. And that is physics. To say it's this is, it comes from the ground up. Well, that's page 2. Page 1 is you got to deliver it down, and then it comes from the ground up.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from, if your upper body's not correct, well, then I don't care about your feet. Your feet can't do a damn thing if your upper body's wrong, right? And you're gonna mess up,
exactly.
and you're gonna mess up your feet. You're only gonna make the problem worse unless you walk with perfectly balanced locomotion. You are eroding your physical being, where your mind resides and your spirit resonates. And now you're working against the very vessel, right? Your house, right? The meat puppet.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to say, your physical experience, we can now, without any extra effort and without any extra time, we can put you on the path to perfect now. And you can spend the rest of your life, you can spend the rest of your life perfecting perfect, as opposed to ingraining the wrong. Why would I pattern wrong? And why would I, build strength on wrong dysfunction?
Yeah.
Why would I do it?
Yeah.
I don't think there's evil people trying to sabotage others in fitness. It's not Dr. Fauci. It's not Bill Gates. They are no, but they are fundamentally evil. There's not a person in fitness nobody's evil in fitness. They all have good intentions, right? It's just ignorance and
They're just taught the wrong thing.
well, it's the ego that doesn't allow them to just discard the wrong, because they invested so heavily.
Yes.
They invested so heavily in wrong, and they won with wrong. What is the science, and what's the science been for the past 15 years? Well, the science says that the core doesn't even generate power. If you know sport, then you know that the spine doesn't bend that much. Like, you watch a baseball, like what? What are you even talking about? Right? Observationally,
it's nuts.
You're wrong at the observational level. So if you're wrong like that, when you can see it, that's saying 2 + 2 is 3. It's not the correct answer. The answer is falling short. And this is all fundamentally true. Fundamentally true. This podcast will age very well.
Absolutely.
This podcast will age extremely well because there is profit in prophecy. What I've been saying is, guys, the puck, you got to skate to where the puck is going to be. Don't skate to where it is. If it's wrong, you have to get it. You have to get it right, and then you skate to where the puck is going to be. But because we're talking about human locomotion, the function will attenuate to the structure so that we use the structure optimally with the function. And right now, we're doing this, and all I'm doing is I'm doing this, right? And it's X on the map. So where's the puck going to be next year, 10 years, 100 years? The puck is going to be exactly where it is right now, exactly where it ever was. If you're talking about what's true, balance is true. And balance,
Exactly.
balance, you can make the argument that balance is natural and more natural than imbalance, because if you had imbalance in a natural world, you didn't pass on your genetics.
Exactly.
And the game ended with you, right? You didn't get the chance to keep moving the football down the field.
Methylene blue, an incredibly powerful substance that has an affinity for the mitochondria. Discovered in 1876 at first as a textile dye, it didn't take long before it was noticed for its unusual biological effects. Here is a list of all the things that methylene blue is known for. My personal favorites, it is effects that it has on the mitochondria. Methylene blue acts as a redox agent. What this means is that it has the ability to grab onto electrons, donate and transfer them anywhere where energy is required in the body. And we know that most Neolithic diseases these days are due to a lack of cellular energy, ATP. The more electrons we can get through successfully along the electron transport chain in the mitochondria, the more deuterium depleted water we can make, as well as the end of energy production, which is ATP. The energy that we need to power all our cellular processes come from electrons. So it only makes sense, the more we take care of our mitochondria and our energy production, the more energy we have for our overall health, well-being and vitality. If you wish to explore the methylene blue that I use, head over to meragimedicinal.com/mobilityfitness and use the promo code mobilityfitness at checkout for 15% off your entire order.
Right.
And as you mentioned previously at the beginning of the podcast, the tools don't lie. So when you're using the sticks and the stones and the rope, if you hit yourself, you hit yourself. That means you're moving out of balance, right? Or you're moving out of coordination. So if you get good at moving with coordination and with good balance, then it's not lying to you. It's giving you the feedback. And that's the beautiful thing about the tool, that it's the teacher, right? And when the student is ready, the teacher will show you the way. And then if you're willing and open-minded enough to accept the knowledge, you can improve massively. And as you said also before, is once you learn those fundamental patterns, it's like riding a bicycle. Even if you don't ride it for 10 years, you'll never forget to ride the bike. You can just get straight back on and your body just simply remembers. But at the beginning, you're going to mess up and you're going to fall down. And that's just part of the process, but it's painful, but it's totally worth it. The beautiful thing is that with the tools that you've created, no one really needs to get hurt. I would love to move into the propulsors a little bit, before we finish our podcast, because I feel like these are such a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. But did I derail that by, you asked another question and I said, wait, I want to back it up and talk.
No, don't worry about it. No, I didn't ask about the propulsors yet.
All right, yeah. Okay.
So I just wanted to change the direction a little bit, because I want to get a bit more into the fascial system, because we talked about it indirectly, but I want to talk about it more directly now. Yeah. And as it relates to performance, efficiency, pain-free movement, and and athleticism. Yep. And you talk a lot about removing slack from the system. I want you to explain to the audience what you mean by that and why it's important and how the propulsors fit into this.
Okay. So what the propulsors do is they provide a new training stimulus that didn't exist prior to the propulsors. Okay. So, and I'll explain the physics behind that, but this is a new category of training, the propulsors, that we'll call open chain upper body plyometrics. Now, a plyometric is defined as you hit some immovable object, right? Close the chain open, close and then get off the ground. And that's a plyometric, right? So, but now what the pulsars do is the pulsars eliminate inertia that is slow, and it concentrates all of the inertia moving super fast, but moving, and then it hits, and all of that inertia is concentrated into this hit that is, it's the right time and it's the right force to go boom, and add that jolt. You get a fascial reaction that's instantaneous. A fascial reaction doesn't have to network to the spine to send a signal back. Fascia is smart and ready right now. You don't got to wait for it, right?
Wow.
And it's responsive. It's not volitional. You can't really say, oh, I'm going to, activate my fascia in 100th of a second. Well, no, when you run, it's going to activate in 100th of a second. But when you're just standing there, you won't get the same forces in the same rate and the same pattern, right? So the propulsors allow you to deliver more force at the precise moment that gives you the fascial,
When you need it.
that gives you the fascial jolt that makes you faster with less effort. Every athlete that we have ever worked with runs faster upstairs with 12 ounces in each hand. So if you were to step back and say, I'm going to add weight, metal, okay, I'm going to put metal in your hands, and now I'm going to ask you to run faster with extra mass that's non-contractile, okay, it's just dead weight, essentially, if you just look at material. All right. And so you're adding that to distal extremity. How the hell can you go faster with that? You game the physics and you just essentially remove the inertia, which means that open chain plyometric can go just as fast as without the weight. And you could argue that you can get a more precise pattern at the same speed or even faster with that load, boom, boom, punctuating each stop and go, each stop and go. And it's a fascial jolt, which means investing here means this happens for free. It goes boom, boom, boom. So I'm not like doing this with my arms where I got to wait for the and stuff. No, I'm delivering force, deliver force, deliver force.
You're intentional.
Yes.
Yeah.
What propulsors do is the propulsors teach you the double down pattern. Okay. People weren't instructed in it. They don't know it. They were instructed opposite, right? They were instructed fundamentally incorrect, right? So, okay, what are we to do? Correct the situation. And if there's a new training stimulus that provides an advantage athletically and it's new, well, that necessity will span every athlete. Every soccer player wears cleats, okay? There's certain training tools that every single athlete uses. And what I'm doing is I'm inventing new things that train pointing at X on the map, perfect, not pointing just randomly off target or opposite target, which is science, right? So what's going to happen? This is an inevitable outcome, is that the pulsars will be used by every single athlete because it's an advantage. And the fact that it's been 7 years and the mainstream science has never even touched the propulsors. Okay?
Really?
It's
Wow.
First of all, skepticism is warranted. Okay? If you tell me that you got weights in your hands that'll make you faster, well, I'm going to be skeptical at first. And I have the right and I have the duty to be skeptical about that, because it's counterintuitive. So let's break it down. What they do is they go, let's not break it down. Let's just say it's terrible, or, let's say it's idiotic, right? Because Weck is a charlatan because he invented the BOSU ball. That's the narrative for hundreds of thousands of these
They're too afraid if they're wrong.
They're terrified, right? And they're fundamentally, I don't care how much weight they can lift. If they're going to defend the defenseless and slander and libel the BOSU ball, if they're going to do those things, they're a fundamental enemy of function, and the market forces will chase them out, or force them to bend the knee to reality, which I have informed them of. I have educated them. I have given them the knowledge, which is the power. And that means that all the harm that they exacted and foisted upon me and my BOSU bond, it's tremendous harm. People have no idea. We're talking $100 million type harm, okay? We're talking about massive harm, and we're talking about a much more tragic harm, which is every single person that they have ever trained since 2007 has been on the wrong foundation that upsets the fundamental survival reflexes. The nervous system is more nervous than it need be if you knew perfect, but you don't. You fight against perfect because of science, right? So the propulsors just provide us a new training stimulus that allows us to do what the best athletes actually do. So we need to ingrain that pattern in the nervous system and get at this pattern. And how are you going to do that? Well, you got to understand that this is what we need to do. That's not, because again, I'm taught this and I'm athletic enough to do this. So there's a disconnect between what I even trained. The neurological patterns were incongruent with what's right. So we require your athletic intelligence to bail you out. Right? But the strength that you developed was wrong strong. So your body got very familiar with compensation that's rising, that has no chance at winning the race and winning the fight. What it is, movement is done, and movement is movement. Movement is not like some breaking down movement into 3 individual planes of motion and training those planes of motion as an individual factor, meaning this exercise
that's crazy.
Transverse plane. This exercise trains the sagittal plane. You've put yourself behind the 8 ball, and even the construct that you've created to map the physics and the biomechanics to do something useful, not something that's fundamentally opposite of useful with an insidious harm that no one notices because it's little drips of water, and the drips never stop. The drips never stop until you plug the leak, right? Plug the leak, core to the floor.
Energy leakage.
They're leaking energy and reinforcing the block and reinforcing that leak. That's what they're doing. They're literally doing that. They've done that, and they're doing that. And I'm the world's biggest critic, most intense critic of anti-rotation training. Okay, I'm saying that the training is fundamentally wrong. Okay, that's what I'm saying, and nobody has addressed that argument other than say I'm a charlatan, and other than say, oh, he doesn't understand the science. And these are literal statements, okay, from people with some reach and respect within the industry. So they have awareness and they have trust, and the trust is undeserved because they betrayed the trust. They were given the stewardship and the leadership position, and they taught wrong strong and made other people train wrong strong with peer pressure from peer review. And now we're just switching it to apply peer pressure to peer review. So we flipped the table. And every day we get more and more converts as people see the social proof that what we are doing is the foundation. It is the invariable foundation. Nobody ever gets deeper. You can try to catch up, but I'll keep drilling and you ain't going to catch me. Okay? Now, there's going to be people with far more talent than me, which has already happened, into the movement. So now we're able to see physical expression of my training philosophy and practices into action. And you see, holy cow, these people are honking strong and they move with like cat-like precision. Oh, geez, I'm doing the Pavlov press. Good God. Like at some point you have to do the Fosbury flop if you're going to high jump. You can't stick with something that's biomechanically not as good. And fundamentally, if you build on a philosophy that is fundamentally wrong, well, that's fundamentally wrong. I have to actually run because I got to go do something with my
Okay, David.
9 o'clock. But let's do another follow-up. Let's keep doing these.
Absolutely. I mean, I love talking to you. You know, we only touched maybe one of my questions that I wanted to get into. So I would absolutely have to do it again. But I think this was such an important message that we shared with the audience, you know, because it's important for people to understand your frustration and where you're coming from and what the science has actually done to your business and you are basically teaching the foundation of human movement, right? And which is balanced locomotion. And you're teaching people to be pain-free, and it literally doesn't cost them anything to do that. And your teachings and principles are able to be applied pretty much immediately simply by people placing their head over their foot every single time they take a front step. And it just goes as simple as that. And if you can keep on repeating those repetitions, you can start to go more and more towards function instead of dysfunction. I really appreciate you, David. Where can people find you, connect with you, and get in contact with you if they want?
Okay, all of the products and free training is at weckmethod.com. And the David Weck, THE David Weck on Instagram and X. I think people will enjoy the antics and sort of the, you know, unpredictable nature of what the next post may be, right? And if you're interested in...
I love your posts. They're great.
If you're interested in, you know, advancing the truth through yourself, right, so that you can help others better, well, that's really that's the name of the game now. And so I get awareness and trust and the truth.
Yes.
Every step.
And it's through your page, which I became pain-free even without using any of your products. So it's incredible. Thank you so much.
You put the principles into practice, and that gives you the capacity to use anything because you know what you're seeking. How can this thing advance my capacity to do that which I want, which is pain-free victory in the race, in the fight, on the golf course, whatever, right? You can't optimize yourself if yourself is trying to resonate when the body is out of balance. It's a
wow, I love that.
And it's an inner conflict between the upper brain and the lower brain. And the way that you reconcile this relationship, which is the most important relationship, this is what you want and this is what you need, right here in terms of brain function. And when you need something that is unnecessary, if you had balance, well, then the whole thing tips out of scale. And then the secret to integrating these is integrating these, because you can divide the brain into quadrants in a sense. The eyes are sort of, you know, their own continent. Your eyes are your brain.
Wow.
But when you take
next time we have to talk about these things.
When you take left and right brain and you integrate them through the hands, if the hands are perfect, then the body by definition has to be perfect, because if the body's not perfect, the hands aren't perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect has a way of turning the whole thing to fundamentally better. And it's sort of like, you know, the ice is cold, the water's cold, but it hasn't, you know, crystallized into ice quite yet. And there's a little salt in the water, so it goes below 32 Fahrenheit and 0 Celsius. Okay. But when it crystallizes into ice, everybody stops drowning, and we get to walk right off the pond. We get to walk on water. All you got to do is turn it into ice. Boom! We'll end on that. Every step stronger for everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, David. Take care, and let's do it again really soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
This is the Fitness Wisdom Podcast.